but I'm still on the ground. It's a dizzying day. I would give a lot to get away.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Ty's Rides. Let's talk Mid-South gravel. I guess it was a week or so before, 2 weeks maybe, I don't remember exactly, but we got an email saying, hey guys, COVID-19, we understand if you can't make the race, if you can't travel, we're gonna give you the option to defer to the next year. Reese and myself, we decided to still head down to Oklahoma. We were gonna race this thing regardless. On, I think it was Thursday or Friday, I don't remember. I know that people were already in Oklahoma or traveling to Oklahoma for the race. The basketball player, he came down with COVID-19 and the NBA made the decision to cancel the season. Guys, understand, right before Mid-South, yes, COVID was starting to spread and people were kind of, things weren't really closing yet, but they were talking about events being canceled and talking about the possibility of closing things. If you're in Bobby Wintel's shoes, and I'm getting at this because I listened to a podcast after the race. It had Amanda Nauman and it had these two guys who do a podcast. This podcast bothered me a little bit because I felt like the two guys who run the podcast, they were kind of bashing Bobby Wintel for continuing to have Mid-South. The thing is, guys, put yourself in Bobby Wintel's shoes. He gave you the option to defer. You could defer to next year, okay? And he gave you the option to race. It was your decision to race. It's your decision to be in Oklahoma, all right? I know that if I'm already in Oklahoma and it's Thursday or Friday and he cancels this race, then I'm gonna be even more pissed off. We are there because we chose to be there. So I appreciate you for that, Bobby, and I appreciate you, Amanda Nauman, for sticking up for him and kind of defending him on that podcast. So Friday, me and Reese loaded up his Prius. We had the bikes in the back and we're headed to Mid-South. The weather's looking cloudy, but no rain. There was a chance of rain Friday. It didn't rain hardly at all on the way down, maybe a few drops. We're constantly looking at the forecast and we're being optimistic. We're like, man, this could be dry. This could be okay. It could pass. It could miss us. We get to the expo, there's kind of a little bit of a buzz in the air about the whole COVID thing. People were talking like, oh man, is the Oklahoma government gonna make Bobby shut this thing down, or what's gonna happen? What if we get to the start tomorrow and they're like, hey, it's canceled. Nobody really knew what was happening. We were just gonna have a good time, enjoy the expo, check out the bikes. We did the Chamois Butter Shakeout group ride, 15 miles of glorious dry gravel. Everything is good. So we get done with the group ride and we're walking to this bar to meet up with some of the Velo villains, and the rain starts falling. And the rain did not stop falling for another 12 or whatever hours. It rained through the night and into the next morning.
One day, it started raining, and it didn't quit for 4 months.
We go to the start, or on the way to the start, and they're like, hey, it's gonna be 30 minutes, 30-minute delay. There was lightning or whatever. So we go sit in the car. Well, we're already wet. Eventually 30 minutes pass, we go to the start, and it's carnage. It's muddy, it's peanut butter, it's slippery. Constantly around mile 20, you start to see and hear rear derailleurs just getting ripped off bikes. And there's casualties all over the place. I mean, the bikes are getting destroyed, and so I'm paranoid. More than anything, the race, it took me 12 hours to finish. It wasn't about racing. Once I got into this thing, it was just about finishing, and I didn't want the bike to be the reason that I didn't finish. I had 2 water bottles on my bike. One of them was for water. The other one, I would stop and I would scoop water out of the streams, and then I would spray off that rear derailleur just trying to keep it clean. We get to the halfway point. The Velo villains, they were our SAG. They did not race that day, but they helped us with SAG. As soon as I got in, they grabbed my bike, they power washed it. Darius is getting me water, he's getting me food, whatever I need, cleaning off my bottles. The Preacher's looking at my brakes. So the thing was, the brakes, we get the bike on the stand and it's washed. Preacher he's trying to put the front wheel back on the bike, and the brake caliper, the pads, it's like metal on metal. It's locked up. He can't even get the rotor into the brake caliper. So we don't know what to do. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, shit.
I'm freaking out, man.
I'm gonna have to abandon. I think it was Scott. Scott's like, you can do whatever you want to do, but the only way for you to get going is for us to take the whole brake caliper off of the bike and then zip tie it to the fork. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. And so we're unscrewing the brake caliper, zip tying it to the bike. The wheel is spinning freely. I've got a little bit of a rear brake left. Preacher, he gave me a light. I didn't have a light. I didn't think I was going to be out there for 12 hours. He had this little light. It wasn't very strong. For about the next 15, 20 miles, I've got somewhat of a rear brake. After that, the rear brake completely goes too. Like there's brake fluid all over the place, metal on the rotors. So picture this, the last 15 miles or so, it's pitch black. I've got this little rinky-dink light that isn't super bright, and I have zero brakes. Now, mind you, Mid-South, there's like two lines in the road. There's the two lines where people have been riding on all day, and those lines, for the most part, are somewhat rideable, but everything in between is pure mush and mud. It's pitch black, and there's some steep hills. So I'm kind of trying to let people either catch up with me that had better lights so I could kind of use their light to see, or I'm trying to catch the people in front of me with better lights. The thing was, I would catch up to some of these people, or they would catch up to me with the good lights, but then when we get to a hill, they would bomb down the hill, but I can't see to bomb down the hill, and I don't have brakes. So I'm literally sitting on the top tube of my bike, and my left heel is digging into the ground as I'm bombing down these hills, all right? Crazy. And for some sick reason, I enjoyed all 12 hours and 13 minutes of this thing. I had an absolute blast. So finally, towards the end of the race, I don't know, it was probably 5 or 6 miles left. I meet up with this guy from Florida. We get to talking. He was super cool. The last 3 miles of the race is pavement and there's cars. Like I said, my light was not very bright. I didn't have a tail light. So he's like, hey, let's just ride together through the end. So he rode behind me so I could use his tail light and I could see with his headlight. We got to the chute. We said goodbye. He was gonna FaceTime his wife for the finish, and I said, hey man, if I see you later, I owe you a beer. So I ride through, I'm skidding into the finish, and it's a great feeling. If I had to carry the bike the last 10, 15 miles, I didn't care. I didn't care if I finished at 5 a.m. I was gonna finish this thing, so I'm really proud of that. I thought, when I got home, I'm like, man, I know a little bit about bikes. I can work on bikes a little bit. I'll just get it cleaned up, I'll get some new brakes, I'll put those on. That wasn't the case. That did not end up being the case. Bike Stop, so they are a specialized dealer. I was hoping that possibly I could, maybe get some things warranted. I took it in. Mark, he just starts looking over the bike and he's kind of running through everything. The bike ended up needing a whole lot more than just new brakes. The pulley wheels that I had cleaned up and I thought they'd be okay, they look like shark teeth. They are not supposed to look like that, all right? So those need to be replaced. The cables, not okay. All new cables, new housing. The bottom bracket, not okay. It was super crunchy. The bike needed a new bottom bracket. The headset bearings, they needed replaced. The future shock, I knew the future shock was kind of crunchy. Mark got it moving. I cleaned it up, lubed it up. So it's moving, it's not perfectly smooth, but it's okay. The bike needed all new brake calipers, obviously new brake pads, and because it was metal on metal, I cleaned up the rotors really good, thinking they'd be okay. But when you have brake fluid on those rotors, no good. So new brake rotors, front and rear. The wheel set, the front wheel bearing was fine. The rear, on the other hand, was super crunchy, so the rear wheel needed new wheel bearings. All in all, it was a little bit of a pricey race for me, but I would do it all over again. The memories that I have from Mid-South are priceless. You can't put a price tag on a race like that, on an event like that. I appreciate you guys watching the videos. If you haven't done so for some reason, hit that subscribe button, like, share, comment, all that good stuff, and have a good one.